horrifying things to scare or not to scare. Right. One of our main topics of the day.
And really one of the main topics of our philosophy as a company anyway. This has been an element that I think as a company we have, I don't want to say struggled with, but internal struggle of we want to do that type of game. Right.
But are we alienating the audience by doing it? How do you get around that? Can you get around that? No matter what, it's like, we talked a bit about indie horror with the Evil Dead 2 game, and the Evil Dead movies. But it's always usually less expensive to do horror, because things don't have to look beautiful, and you can do things to look dirty or
gritty,
blood hot. It's a lot of sins, it's just easier to make something look grotesque than it is to make it look magical and
pristine,
pretty, and pristine. So, with a horror game, you're probably going to have less startup costs. But on the same token, yes, there is absolutely a demographic for horror games, but it is nowhere near mass market appeal of, say, your Tomb game, your Egyptian game, or, a zombie game even though that's horror, it's still kind of thought of in this.
It's like a sci-fi horror.
Yeah. So straight up horror though, serial killers, monsters, ghosts. There's definitely a refrainment from a lot of people, especially like you'll always get those people who are like, if anything comes out and touches me, I'm punching them, and it's like, so now your cast and your staff are afraid to do it.
Yeah.
If you have live actors in the experience. But there's a big give and take to doing a horror experience.
It's really weird too, like the difference between doing a scary game and making horror movies, because the horror movie is booming again. It's always been like the disposable moneymaker. Just make a movie for like $1 million and make make like $100 million back. I guess the key difference is that when you watch a horror movie, everyone likes to be scared, but everyone likes to be scared as a passive participant.
Right. Yeah. There's distance.
Paying $15 $20 to see a scary movie is not the same thing as being locked in a scary game.
Right.
So
this is also, our experience with Boogeyman is very telling of the difference between a haunted house and a horror escape room, because we always kind of talk about with a haunted house, you're expecting jump out scares and things like that around every corner. You're turning the corner, like bracing yourself, and but with the escape room, you end up inevitably sucking into the puzzles, and you forget, and then all of a sudden it's behind you, and it's a completely different experience at that point. We were just talking about Room Escape earlier, but Room Escape artists, when they played Boogeyman, one of their team was literally a doorstop for half the game. And then the other element of horror that's an issue too is you can't scare everyone.
Right. Yeah. There will always be that person that's at least pretending they're not scared, and is just completely deterred and winds up ruining it for others. Yeah.
But in general, what I'm afraid of is probably different than what Mike's afraid of, different than what you're afraid of.
Sure.
It's death, germs. It's a very like with Boogeyman though, we try to hit different subconscious fears, as opposed to going into like your stereotypical blah. And that works for certain audiences, but if you don't get sucked into the story, you leave like, that was cheesy.
Yeah.
Or
someone trying to shake hands with the Boogeyman or something like, hey man, how you doing? And it kind of diffuses the whole thing.
I wonder though how much of that's just like a
defense mechanism.
A lot of times it's a defense mechanism, but it's still
like you
hurts the momentum.
Yeah, but like what else are you gonna do? You have it's
Were you there the day that the one girl was like, "I need to hug you"?
I think I was there.
Because I was the boogeyman.
Yeah.
This girl was terrified, and she's like, "Just to cope with this, I need to
embrace
I
my
need to
fear.
hug you." And it was like.
At that point, the boogeyman's like, "No, person."
Love and compassion. No.
That's when the boogeyman starts to melt.
That's the real end of the game. Hug the boogeyman.
I mean, no
You
matter
have to
what.
embrace your fear, and it actually makes sense.
The boogeyman's just lonely. At the end of the
That's
day.
why he abducts these children. He just wants people to play with.
Just wants company.
No matter what, you've eliminated a kids market.
Right.
And if you're
Which
letting
was always
children
the
in,
debate between us. Yeah.
I'll blatantly say this because I know there are plenty of escape room owners who still let kids play what would be a rated R movie if it was a movie. You're an asshole if you're letting kids play a horror game.
I'm gonna defend that because or argue against it rather because we get plenty of kids who are totally into the idea of witch hunt.
The
and
idea.
some of them love it too. It's the parents who are like, no, they're not old enough. And
Witch hunt's a little different.
Witch hunt is a little
Witch
different.
hunt is a little different, but even so, like as a little kid, I'd probably be all over Boogeyman. But like, we have like parents of 14, 15-year-olds who are like, no, my kids are too precious for witch hunt.
I don't know if I'm even discussing a 14, 15 demographic. I'm kind of looking at like the 10, 11-year-olds.
10, 11, but like even so, there are some kids who are just really into that stuff.
There are kids who say they're into it, but then again, it's the difference between the movie and the game. A movie, they might be able to watch a movie of Boogeyman.
Sure.
But when they're in the moment, they start to freak out.
Yeah, but we've had some kids younger kids play Witch Hunt who came out of that game loving it.
Witch Hunt is different from Boogeyman, though.
Sure, but even so,
and even different than Cure Z.
When we have 13-year-olds crying,
consider that horror.
When we have 13-year-olds crying when the door in Witch Hunt opens, to have an 11-year-old kid come out of that game and go, "That was awesome," that.
Well, that's the thing. You can't guess everybody's reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You can only think these kids shouldn't be able to do this.
I mean,
doesn't mean they can't. Some kids can, some kids can't.
I would just, for me, it's like I'm not one to shy away. No, your kids can't do that. I'm just like, listen, if a mom calls asking about the game, I tell them what it is.
Yeah.
Make your own judgment, but I'm not saying don't come.
Right.
Well, I mean, I remember when we were, I don't know, maybe a month away from opening Boogeyman. You remember some of the conversations we had about the phone calls we were getting from like moms? I'll never forget the mom who was like, "You should be ashamed of yourselves opening the," and then was like, "I bet I changed your mind." It's like, yeah, no, we just invested 30,000, 40,000. We'll just kill it. You're right.
We also got grief for having a zombie game from the some sort of like Christian coalition. So I mean. Can't please everybody, I guess. But,
there's always going to be some faction.
Witch hunt hanging issues. We were promoting slavery.
Even though nobody had seen the game and didn't.
No context whatsoever.
Not promoting slavery.
We just had a bunch of window gawkers thinking they knew what they were talking about, and rather than confronting us physically, coming into our location and asking us or engaging us in a communication, they just made all of these rather asinine assumptions about who we were and what we were doing. Because when you're going to take down somebody, it's easier to make assumptions about them rather than do your actual research. That's about 8th grade final paper right there. You just make assumptions and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But if you have questions, if you have concerns, let us know.
Right.
Come into the fucking building. Pardon my language, but we're pretty affable and we'll answer all of your questions. So I mean, if you have concerns about content, talk to us.
I actually grabbed a sample of some of the footage from the live streaming Boogeyman game. So, Rafi, if you're watching, this was your game. And I'm really excited to even show this little snippet of 40 seconds. But, take a look. This is a little clip of our horror escape room Boogeyman played through Trapdoor Escape Stream.
Lily and Alan went missing in the night. They were taken. And we need you to...
Whoa! Stay close, Christina.
Wait! Help!
Christina! Christina! Ah! I see it. I see it. Ah! Ah! Ah!
So that was so much fun to do. That was our first streaming Boogeyman game on Escape Stream, and if I was going to plug any of our streaming content and say, like, this is the game that out of our library of escape room games is made for streaming, Boogeyman plays better streaming, I think, than in person.
And it does. Now there's a screen in between you and the game.
Right.
So if you're too scared to play it before, this might be a better way to play it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess are there any
And
other...
probably better for the younger kids, too, going back to that.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. And you still have, like, you know, alcoholic, abusive dad, and you still, you know, there's some dark stuff in that game.
Only if you really look into it. You could skirt past that and just play the game.
Streaming tends to, you know, one thing I noticed too is the streaming highlights a lot. Where, like, some of the stuff you might not catch playing.
You have to catch it streaming.
Yeah, like there was direct connection of things like the photos in Jack's room and stuff like that, because you're analyzing everything through a POV. It's different.
Yeah. I like when people pick it up when they're playing the game, though. That shows that all the work that we put into it is paying off.
But horror games, are they for you? Are they not for you? Let us know in the comments below. You know, we love making them, but ultimately we also want to make sure that a much bigger market could enjoy our content. So we can only do so many of them.
Yeah.
You know, and then there is kind of that element of, you know, people are just terrified of there being an actor in the room.
Right. Yeah, we get questions about that all the time, no matter how many times we say no.
Right.
People still think that it's going to happen.
Yep. Okay. Next up on our list of discussion topics here today.